Hi everyone, welcome to the third episode of Creative Craftmas. In today's tutorial, we will be creating a 12-day advent calendar using boxes. We will be using the Cricut Explorer Air to cut SVG box templates out of some thicker stock paper. And then I'm also going to include a number label that I designed with you using Affinity Designer as a freebie in this video. If you signed up for my emails, you will likely have access to all of the freebies that I share this month. If you haven't signed up for the Craftmas emails, definitely sign up below. I'll include the link, and as a thank you, you'll receive every single project that we create throughout this month in that file that you get in your sign up email. This is a 12-day advent calendar, and basically it leads up right to Christmas Eve. And it's a really simple way to customize and create your own family version of the typical calendars that you might buy at a regular retail store. You can make a set for each member of your family and fill them with whatever you'd like. And you can also really personalize the actual design of the box as well as the little stickers that we're going to be creating together. But if you want to keep it simple and you just want some cut files, I'll have all of the links to everything below. This is a super fun project. All you need is a Cricut to cut. If you don't have a Cricut, that's okay too. You could use scissors. I'm going to use some sticker label paper as well as my iPad, because I will be designing that label on the iPad with the Affinity Designer app. And then you'll probably likely need access to some form of a printer. We are going to be using Cricut's print and cut function to make the stickers, and then we're just going to be using an SVG file that we can load to Cricut Design Space to cut the boxes. And I'd also suggest you grab some sort of adhesive, whether it be glue or tape, because we are going to have to basically fold and put the boxes together before we can use them. I'm excited to create with you today. Let's get started. So for the beginning of this tutorial, what we're going to want to do is create the gift labels that are going to go on the front of the advent calendar. We're going to create 12 of them. They're going to be numbered 12 through 24. And my thought process for this was to design them so that they look like little ornaments. So we're going to be working in Affinity Designer for this, just because I think it's going to be easier to create the shapes and get the precision that we need for this die cut for these little stickers. And then we'll jump into actually creating the boxes. So let's launch Affinity Designer. And I'm just going to set up an 8.5 by 11 file. So we're going to go to this little plus icon once we're in our gallery. We're going to hit plus. We're going to select New Document, and then for our new document, we are going to change the size. Well, we're going to change first from points to inches, and then we're going to change our size from whatever is currently in the dimensions to 8.5 by 11, so 8.5 for the width, and then hit OK, and then 11 for our height, and then hit OK. And then for our DPI, let's change that to 300, just so that we get a nice quality print and cut. And then what we want to make sure we do is select transparent background, because that's going to help us create the PNG file with no white space so that it will cut out properly. And then you can hit OK. So once we're done with this, we'll get a nice clean blank page, and I am going to show you how I create my little ornaments. I'm just going to use some of the shape maker tools here on the left hand side. So we're going to go down to the rectangle tool, we're going to hold it down, and you'll get a pop-up, and it'll give you all of these other options. So we are going to select a circle or the ellipse, and we're just going to drag out and create a nice round shape. And then we're going to go to the right hand side and go into our Swatches Studio, and we're going to change the colors here. So I'm going to change it so that I have a color wheel, because I find it's easier for me to find the colors that I'm looking for. And I'm thinking I'm going to do a nice pretty kind of like off red color for these, so it's festive. And then I'll do my letters in white on top of this. But before we even get to the letters, we are going to go back to our shape maker tool, and we're going to select the rectangle, and we're going to create the top of this little ornament. So just think about what an ornament looks. It's kind of like a circle with a square, and then I'm gonna cut a hole just so that it gives me another like 3D element. But let's get to the rectangle portion of this first. So I'm just gonna create another rectangle by clicking on my screen and dragging it across. And then it'll give me a rectangle on top of this little square. What I wanna do though, so that I don't like, if I were to try to move this item, it's gonna move it all separately. If you ever wanna undo something, just take 2 fingers, tap, and it'll undo on your screen. What I wanna do though is select both of these. So I'm gonna go off my workspace and I'm gonna drag, making sure my move tool is selected, that little arrow up top. I'm gonna drag it off screen and then over both of these shapes, and you'll see that they're both selected because they're highlighted in blue. What I want to do now is go up into my menu options, and I'm going to select the menu option with the 3 dots, and I'm going to go down to this area called geometry. Under here we can subtract items and elements from shapes, we can combine elements, and that's what we want to do. So what we want to do is select add so that it creates one whole shape instead of 2 separate. You might want to make that top a little bit bigger because we are going to be removing a little section in the center. And then what we're going to do is go back to our shape tool, and we're going to change it from rectangle back to circle, but you can do other things too if you want. If you want to create a donut, if you want to create a heart shape. I'm going to create the heart shape, and I am going to go to my right hand studio, my color studio. I'm going to change the color from red to white just so that I can see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to go back to my heart tool, and then I'm going to create a heart by dragging it across this little section. And I'm going to go in, and you'll notice that there's this kind of like it's hard to see because I'm using red here, but there is a little red dot right here. If I pull this down, it's gonna adjust the actual angle of the inside of my heart, and I just want it a little bit deeper. And then I'm gonna bring the bottom of the heart up a bit more, and then what I'm gonna do is kind of drag this to the center by selecting my move tool. I'll drag it to the center of this little square area here, and then what I want to do is cut this out. I want to cut it out so that there's not white space there, but it's going to be this gray space, which basically is a transparency. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my red ornament. I'm going to hold my finger down on my screen, and then I'm going to select the heart, and it'll allow me to select both elements together, and then I'm going to let go. And then I'm going to go back to that 3-dot menu, and I'm going to select under geometry, subtract. And once I do that, it knocks this center area out, and I have created kind of like a cutout in my shape. So this is what our ornament's going to look like. Now what I want to do is add a number. So I'm going to go to my artistic text tool. So I'm going to go to my colors. I'm going to change that black to a white. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the artistic text tool on the left hand side. It's that little A. I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to zoom in so you can see this here. And then I'm going to take my Apple Pencil and I'm going to just drag it down, and you'll see a letter start to pop up. And then we're going to go down to the bottom left of our studio here, and I'm going to change the font type. So you'll see that there is options to revise the typeface that allows you to change if you want your type to be bold, italic, and the actual size of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to select where it says Arial, and I am going to go and select this American typewriter because I used it in my last one, so I kind of want to create like a consistent feel to all of the different elements that we're creating today. And then I think I'm going to keep it at 100 points because I think that looks big enough. And then I'm going to go over here to the right hand side. I moved this little, it looks like a pencil with an A on it. I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to select my keyboard so I can type, and then I'm going to select the numbers, and I'm going to start with 12. And then I'm going to take my move tool, I'm going to click on my move tool, and then I'm going to center this number in the middle of my ornament. And now what I'm going to do is select all of it once again, And I'm going to go into my layers function on the right hand side, and I'm going to select the little icon that looks like a puzzle, and I'm going to click on it, and that groups it together so that everything is all together. So now everything is grouped together, and the beauty of this is that I don't have to do this whole process 12 times. I can just copy it and paste it. So I am actually going to resize this though so that I can fit. So if you want to double check, I'm thinking 1.5 inches is going to be good for our width. So what we can do is we can go into our transform tool. When this is selected on the right hand side on your right hand tool studio, we're going to go to the transform studio, which looks like a square with like a quarter cut out of it. This is where you can transform, where you can rotate, where you can reposition your elements. And what I want to see is what the actual dimensions are of this. So this is showing that it's 2.7 by 3.1, which is too big for the boxes I'm creating. The boxes I'm creating are about 3 inches, so I'm thinking we need to bring the height down to 1.5, and I can just pull this in from the corner and it will resize it for me. And then because this is locked in my dimensions, you'll see that it automatically resizes the width for me. So I think this is good. What I'm going to do now is copy this and duplicate it a few more times and start to update the numbers. So I'm going to select this, and then I'm going to go up into my upper menu, select that 3-dot icon, and I'm going to select duplicate. And then I'm just going to drag this over. And I'm going to do that so that I have 12 total days. Once I've duplicated the first set of 4, then go in and select all of them with my move tool. And then I can reposition them so that they're more centered, and then I can go back to that 3-dot menu option and I can duplicate these. So it gives me a set of 4 again. Duplicate it 2 more times so that I have 12 total. And then I'm just going to select them all so that they're all positioned nicely on my file. You may want to increase the size just a bit, just because Creative Design Space has a tendency to resize things when you pull it in to the Design Space workspace. So it's just always better to work bigger than smaller. And now we can go in and update all of the numbers. So to update the numbers, I'm just going to select my artistic text tool. I'm going to zoom in, and then I'm just going to tap into where my number is, and then select my keyboard, and then delete the 2, and then update it with the next number in my process. I'm going to do this for all of the rest of these. So this is what it looks like once it's done. We're going to start ours on the 12th or on the 13th. I just put a 12 there because I was thinking 12 days of Christmas, but the 12 days would be the 13th through the 24th, which is Christmas Eve. And this is what it looks like. So now we can export this file. So to do that, what we're going to do is we are going to go into our menu options, and we're going to select export. And then we want to export this as a PNG so that it has that transparency. We can rename this number labels, and then everything else here looks fine. We can select OK. And then you need to save this somewhere that you'll be able to find it easily. I'm just going to save it in my Affinity Designer folder. I'm going to hit save, and then it's exported my file. So now we can jump into Design Space so that we can export this and get them ready to be print and cut on the Cricut. So now we're going to launch Cricut Design Space, and we're going to select New Project, and we're just going to hit Replace. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select Upload, and we are going to select Browse Files, and then we're going to find the file with our labels. So wherever you saved it on your iPad, and then I'm going to scroll down until I find where the label file is. And here it is. So once I've found it, I'm going to click on it, and then I'm just going to review this to make sure everything looks the way I want it to look. You can see in the right hand side the black and white version of this. Everything in black will be like printed, and what you'll see in terms of the cut is what's outlined, and then what you see as kind of like highlighted in white. So the heart will be cut out, and the actual shape of these little labels will be cut out. We don't need to do any of this erasing or removing because we exported it as a PNG. Just hit next. Same with this, just hit next again. And then we need to make sure we select print and cut. We need to name this, and then it's already been loaded to our file system. So now we're gonna go back into our file system, select upload, browse files. And if you have any issues finding your file, you can just go back to your main board and then select upload and then open uploaded images. And then we will select the numbers and it'll be outlined in green, and then we can select insert. And now it's going to show our file. So what we need to do though is resize this and adjust it so that it fits the width of what the print and cut is going to be. So we're going to click on this, go to edit, and then readjust our height. If you're having any issues with the size of this, just make sure that at max your width is 6.75. And then you should be good to go. Once we've done this, we can zoom in so you can see what this looks like. And then we can select make it, and then it's gonna think for a bit, and then we need to get our printer and our paper loaded. I'm gonna use sticker paper again just because it's easier for me, so that I can just stick this onto our actual little boxes. So just like before, I'm gonna be using the Online Labels matte sticker paper, and this is what I'm going to be cutting, print and cutting my holiday number labels to place on my boxes with. So we just gotta go and put this into our printer so that we can then place it on our mat to print and cut. Now to print, we just have to make sure that everything is all set up. We can select continue, and we're gonna send it to our printer. And then we're going to select the printer that we'll be printing with. I'm selecting my Canon today. Everything else should be fine. And then select print. It'll send it to the printer. So this is what they look like once they're done. Now we just need to place them onto our mat in the same manner that the design space is showing us. Just line everything up top and to the left. We've already printed. We're at the point where we're going to send our stickers through the machine. So what we have to do for this is I'm just going to create a Kiss Cut set so that it's easy for me to peel off. So my settings for Kiss Cut for this particular paper are for my material, I use a custom material, I select sticky note, and then for my pressure, I change it from default to less. And then everything is good to go, and then I'll be able to insert this into the Cricut machine. Alright, so now we can get to the interesting part of actually printing and cutting our boxes. So there's this amazing website called templatemaker.nl, and you're allowed to use these for commercial use. I'm going to link this below. I don't want to include the template that I've created just out of respect to the website creator, so that you can go and put in your own dimensions into their site and download. But basically that's all you do. You put the dimensions of the style and size of box you want, and then you can download all kinds of SVG, Cricut files, PNGs, things like that. So what I want to create is this really basic foldable box. And I like it because it makes the most efficient use of your actual paper. I'm going to be using a lightweight cardstock, and I'm going to change my units from millimeters to inches, and I want this to be 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches all around. So all you have to do now is create, because I just want this to be a square box, so hit create. And then it's going to give you the pop-up, which will allow you to download the SVG, and then I can load this into Cricut Design Space. So I'm going to exit out of here, go back into my Cricut Design Space. I still have my old file here, so you can just hit continue, and then I can just go back to my home, and then I'm going to select new project. Before I start this new section, I'm just going to hit the little save icon. I'm going to select save as. I'm going to call this holiday tags, just so that I know what the file was. I'm going to save it to the cloud, and then I'm going to X out of it, and then I'm going to select upload. So I'm going to select browse files, and then I'm going to find the downloaded SVG file from that website on my iPad. So I'm going to go to downloads, and then it should be saved in here as the gift box 3.5, 3.5. And then I'm just going to rename it, and then I'm going to select it, and then I'm going to select this little insert button, and this gives me my box. So I'm going to have to make this 12 times. I have a feeling I'm going to need the whole sheet of paper, so let's see how this goes. I'm just going to click on it to just make sure my dimensions are okay and select make it. And I'm going to keep in mind that each of these is about 3.5 inches. Cricut has a tendency to resize things once you get them into the file system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep in mind that these should be 3.5 inches. So 3, 6, 9. So this should be about, so this should fill up pretty much the width of the page of paper. So I'm just going to adjust the width to be 8.5. And then if the height ends up being too big, I'll just scale it down a bit. And I think we should be okay. So I think this should be good. I'm going to select make it once I've resized everything. This should fit an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. I've cut out 12 because I have to make 12. So now let's load this into the Cricut machine. I'm going to continue, and then I'm going to adjust the actual material and my settings. So I'm going to select my material to be medium cardstock, and for my pressure, I'm going to select less, and then I'm going to load this into my Cricut machine. Once we're done cutting, we can then pull this off of our mat. It should pull up relatively easy, and this is what you'll have as a final piece. So now all we have to do is cut this out 12 more times and then begin to assemble the boxes. Now that we're done cutting, it's time to start to assemble these. So these are relatively easy. You just want to follow the basic guidelines of what and where things should be folded. So where you see the little indents, these are your glue flaps. So you're going to be folding these in and gluing them as well. So what you're going to want to do is fold in all of the glue flaps first. So that's these little outer edges here. I'm folding them in because we'll be utilizing them to glue to one another as we fold the box up. And then after I do that, then what I want to do is basically kind of give myself very light bends where the rest of the box shape is going to start taking place. And then you'll start to see the box taking shape. So what I like to do is add some glue stick, glue to the little edges, the glue flaps, and then start to kind of like press everything together to create my shape. So I prefer a glue stick for this just because it's a little tackier and it's easier to kind of get the pieces of paper to stick together. So I'll apply the glue to all the glue edges that are gonna be stuck together. And then we'll start to kind of like piece this together like this. So this is your top, you'll know it's by the flap. This is your front, you'll know it by that little tab, and then these are your sides. So you can just kind of start to place everything together along those fold lines. And then you'll pull the front up, and then on the inside you'll see these little flaps here. You'll want to pull those over those edges, and we'll go back in and add glue in there in a second. But I like to kind of like get everything fitted first, and then I'll apply glue to that edge. So I'm going to open this up a bit. I'm going to pull these flaps out, and then I'm going to add glue to them. Now that I've got the sides up. And then I'm just going to pull it down inside, and it should be catching both this front glue edge and the inside of the side of the box. And it's okay if the first one isn't perfect. Mine isn't. I have like a little bit of some extra paper on this side that's a little too high. You could always go in, because the glue stick is relatively kind of workable. So you can just go back in if you need to add more. If you have to refold something down further, you can do that as well, which is what I'm going to do with this side. So I'm just going to make sure everything is lining up properly here. Trying to get my edges as flush as possible. And then I'm going to take this and refold it so that my edge is not as high. And then I'm just going to kind of like rub the edges so that they stay nice and clean and flush. And then my box is done. So what I'm going to do is add my little number stickers to these. You can tape these down because they are kind of, they're more of a flimsy like push and tap. So what you could do is you could just put a piece of tape down after you fill it in, or fill it up with whatever it is that you want to fill this up with. And then you can go and grab the stickers that you created, pull one off. This is what it looks like. It's just a clean kiss cut, and you can just stick this to the front of your box. And you have your own little box that you can fill up and create a nice little advent calendar like pyramid with. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to finish making the rest of these, and then I'll show you all the final product. So this is the final setup. I didn't have enough room on my desk to include all 12, but this is essentially what you would, how you would stack it in a pyramid style. And then you can just basically have little items inside of each of these. I personally think this came out really cute. The boxes were actually much easier to make once you get through the first one. And I think this is just a really fun and inexpensive kind of paper craft kind of idea that you can actually do and utilize and work on this winter. I hope you found this tutorial helpful and fun. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.